And welcome back to the Union Station project. Last month I finished working on all the windows and door frames. Lots of touch up yet to do, some cleanup to do on this little part here. I got to do a little painting, a little so forth to get the door frames to look good here. So all those little door frames and window frames are all done, and I'm moving on to another project here, getting all the columns in place. And I put 4 screws right through the base of the model, through the station platform, to help hold this structure in place while I put the columns in. This really helped to keep the building flat on the base while I worked on the columns, and also prevented me from jacking up the arches, fitting columns together here. So I wanted to be careful I didn't put too much pressure on that to move the building out of the way while I was fitting the columns. So basically the same technique for painting the columns, or weathering. I guess it's more like heavy weathering, using a bit of water and some pan pastels. I'm sorry I didn't show the pastels in the shot here, but it's kind of a dark brown, maybe a burnt umber color that I'm using for the pan pastels. Just dipping the brush in the pastels, a little bit of water, not wet but damp brush, to apply the color, and then I come back with a dry brush to help spread out the color a bit and get rid of all the brush strokes. So this is a technique I've used throughout the project for coloring the station. Now, as I worked on these columns, came across a few little problems I had to solve. Of course, I changed my approach a number of times to finally get these to fit right and to look good on the model. Unfortunately, when I made all these columns, I made with the upper and lower little pedestal plate on them, and unfortunately most of them, or a lot of them, were just too darn short, and they didn't quite work out that way. I thought I could make them close to the right size and then use a little liquid cement to hold them in place, but it didn't quite work out that way. They still weren't quite getting a good contact for the cement to do a good job. And you can see here a few failed attempts at first trying to get those columns to fit, because I didn't want to push them underneath the building too tight to start with, because I thought they would kind of jack up the building a bit and make it more difficult to get them in right. But this was the first thing I tried, and it didn't quite work out quite right. And I tried some other things later and finally came up with some good solutions. And I took a little sidetrack here to try out some lamp posts that I've bought for this project. Can't decide if they look a little too big. Maybe I just need to shorten the post a little bit to make them fit a little better, but they look nice. And just wanted to test fit a few of them in here just to see how they would look. And also got some little pieces of railing that I've made that kind of suggest how that's going to finish off the street here once I get the station done. More of the little finer details once I get done with the station. We'll move on to other parts of the project, but for now I just thought I'd try a little bit of test fitting to see how they look. And as I mentioned, many of the columns turned out to be just too short, so I took the ones I had and cut the pedestals, little top and bottom plates, cut those off and reused them, made some new columns, and tried a little different approach here where I glued just the top plate in place. You can see here just the top plate is in place, glued that on, and the bottom plate is on the column, and I would sand it to make it fit, to see if I could get it just right size, right length, and just enough contact under there to make the column fit. So this helped a bit to glue that top plate up first and then put the column in. Still turned out in a number of places I was still too short. As you can see here, I tried again the liquid cement to put the column in place, but it was still just a little bit too short, and liquid cement just wasn't quite making good contact here. So in a lot of cases I end up having to use a little shim, so I put on a small sheet of styrene, as you can see here, just a little square of styrene, and I trimmed it down and sanded it round so it was flush with the top of the column. But this gave just enough of a little shim in a lot of places to make up for my inaccuracy, and once I did a few of those columns and shimmed them a little bit, then they started to fit well underneath there and get enough contact to make a good bond once I came back with some cement. Also went from the liquid cement to the bottled, more viscous liquid cement by testers, so you'll see that in a little bit here, and finally started getting these things to where they would be the right size without being too tight, and yet just the right size here to make good contact and glue them all into place. So this technique finally worked, and I'll have to come back and do a little touch up with the painting and coloring to brush this up. There's lots of touch up needs to be done on this. Now this is a close look at the previous attempt at building the station. You can see how the columns were kind of floating off the ground here. So this new station where all the columns are flat to the base here, it looks a lot better. All the columns are nice and straight. They all sit flat on the base, so they aren't floating like the old one was. That was always a problem. It didn't look very good to have all those bases floating off the platform. So I couldn't do the technique I had with the old version, the old build, because I didn't have a base on this thing to fasten to the platform. So having a base underneath the main building made it a lot easier to just kind of screw it down tight, and everything's nice and flat on the platform. Well, from here the next big step is to finish all the roof panels. You can see there's some little round windows in each one of the gables over the entries. Those will need some glazing and some framing pieces. I also need to build the end pieces here over the north and south entries. You can see there's a little big gap there that needs to be filled in. So I made the little extensions over the concourses and was able to join those together. So just basically 3 pieces here to make this connection between the concourse and the main terminal. And these went in pretty well. They didn't take very long to make. Probably spent about 45 minutes making these and putting them in place. So you can see right there how they fit, and they'll cover the gap there from the concourse to the main building. So pretty much done with a lot of the construction, just the roof panels to work on next. So keep an eye on this, and we'll do more in the next video. Thanks for watching. Thanks for staying. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.